start to think of some more little subtleties. Oh, wow. On Lost Temple, this would have been the entrance, and these Zerglings never would have been able to swing around, but they can. So it looks like, oh, this pylon placement, you gotta be a lot more careful when placing pylons. Zerg can shut down future warp-ins much more easily. Look at XLord. XLord now kind of has to defend this pylon. I mean, those are some pretty decent force fields, and he's warping in some more zealots now. But suddenly it's a tough spot for XLord to aggress in. He does have the +1 upgrade, and there's a Spine Crawler coming up. Oh, I'm half and half on those force fields. I think they were, like, neutral. Yeah, so look, XLord building a lot of pylons. He's already up to pylon 3. I would defend that play. It's going to be hard to keep all your pylons alive. You want to make sure that you can continue to warp in. And look how much damage Zealots do to Zerglings when they have that +1. I mean, these Zealots are holding so much stuff off. So much stuff off. Another thing, you heard me say, on Temple, this would have been the entrance, and this swing around where the Zerglings could have popped up here and killed that off would never have happened. By the same token, if there were a bunch of Spine Crawlers here, or if Protoss, saying, oh goodness, all my stuff's yellow, I need to pull back, he can pull back, and then he can swing around here, and he can go for the ramp. Just a little bit of extra space. This isn't a huge amount of extra space, but just a little bit extra can make a gigantic difference. So already this is a very ugly situation for our Zerg hero, OgreEli. Having to back up, but it looks like he's going to barely be able to defend thanks to these 2 queens popping up just in time. God, Zealots are so good in this game. Yep. No Stalkers in this mix, and obviously that gas is getting a little high. You're going to want as many sentries as you can just because you have the ability to continually produce. But I mean, look at this. So awesome. And part of the reason why this is so good is that Zerg can't really rely on a bunch of Spine Crawlers. Even these Spine Crawlers here aren't helping this region in the slightest. And they won't be able to unless you build a ton of them. Still more warping going in. Oh, cute little photon cannon placement. Again, on a map like Lost Temple, wouldn't really need to build this photon cannon, because once my push begins, Zerg would have to work his way through that photon cannon. Or let me try it again. If this were Lost Temple and my push was beginning, these Zerglings would have to work their way through my main force. But on a map like this, huge counterattack path. Huge counterattack path. Gotta always have a little bit of extra defense. Little subtle touches. It kind of, gently adjust the flavor and the experience of you doing these builds. But I mean, still that same core is there. Oh yes, Hydralisk to be able to finally defend the push. Hydralisk is great against Zealots. Gonna be some Stalkers warping in now to be able to deal with that. Ooh, missed some key force fields there, but it happens. So, I've been talking a lot about map analysis, and at this point, there's really not that much change that's going to be going on. Zerg's going to try to kill these things off. Protoss is going to try to not have those things killed off, and a nice little tug-of-war happens. And yeah, it looks like Probe's finally pulling back. Yeah, it looks like Protoss is finally saying to himself, gotta calm down. Ooh, this is smart, pulling all guys off gas. And I actually mean that seriously. Look at Protoss. He's really low on, really high on gas, really low on minerals. No reason to get super crazy amounts of gas when your primary focus is building non-gas units. And as we can see, it looks like Protoss also used that little bit of extra cash to throw down a Nexus. I think that's actually very clever. I'm going to stop making probes to devote myself fully to this push, and if it starts to fail, just pull guys off gas and expand. Awesome. Oh yeah, and here's a nice little full out and out retreat from XLord. And, it's easy to say something like, oh, Protoss' attack failed, he has to pull back, but honestly, Protoss is in a pretty decent position because he has all these units, he has the flexibility to defend this Nexus. If he tried to do this any earlier, it would be the good old no-go zone. And of course, XLord with his hacker lights on detects the Overlord on his own minimap. Is he going to get that? No, it's going to stick over here in the chasm. Yeah. So, Protoss finally inching his way forth, or Zergy inching his way forth, killing off some pylons. And I'm going to try to do my best to actually lean back in my chair and talk a little louder, because I've been leaning forward too much, which has been giving me carpal tunnel. So I want to avoid that a lot. So I'm just sort of looking around here. What is Protoss' plans? Looks like he's making more photon cannons. I would be okay with another photon cannon here to deal with counterattacks. but I still would favor almost all my money to units. On a more closed-off map, I'm going to stop using Temple. Let's use Steps of War. I would be more than content to build some photon cannons at my fat ramp, because that pretty much covers all the entrances to my base. But there's this big swing-around path. Zerglings can actually get back here without the cannon helping out. Big amount of space. Those units would prefer that mobile force. So it looks like Zerg is expanding back along this way. Now, I can understand this. We didn't have the chance to kill off these destructible rocks, so we're going to take the next best thing. Also, one thing that's nice about this, I feel scared because of this cliff. That can be a little bit of a problem, but we still only have one entrance here. When we move out to these destructible rocks, we suddenly have this whole path, and this whole path, and this path to the left can still dump directly into our main. It's a lot of space to cover. And you heard me touch on that a little bit by saying, yes, guard the Xel Naga Watchtower. But here, easy place to expand to as well, because it still has less entrances. We can defend that pretty easily. And it means that we have all our defenses already set up here, and we just roll forces up here to defend. So I would probably want to begin creeping back here as well. Creep seems pretty good there. Okay, so XLord now has expansion up. Whoopsie daisies, leaving that chrono boost a little high. Oh, that's so obnoxious. Was it even researching anything? I don't think it was, but still that's very obnoxious. Nice warp in from XLord. XLord, doesn't look like he's doing anything. I thought that purple shroud was him on the minimap, but alas, no. So it looks like going to be a little bit of passivity here. And a Robobay coming up. Very typical way to transition. If you have a lot of gateway units, and you haven't really done very much tech, just blast out a bunch of Colossi and cut production of everything else. It's a good way to keep the pressure up. It's a little bit expensive, but, you know, it's just a good method nonetheless. And also with all these high, low-ground cliffs everywhere and all these places to bounce up and down, I think Colossi would kind of be nice on this map. Templar, perhaps not as good as the Colossus because these spaces are just so wide open. I mean, Templar will never be horrible or anything like that, but, you know, I can get why the Colossus is a reasonable choice for Protoss in this spot. Creeping, not as active as I like. A lot of Hydralisks, seems good. Throwing down some Evo Chambers, and ooh, yeah, this is something that's great. Very fast tech to the Ultralisk Cavern. I'm real curious, how's Zerg going to deal with that? Or excuse me, how's Protoss going to deal with that? Because getting the Ultralisks that quickly is one of the more effective ways to deal with the Colossus. We've seen Artosis and Idra start doing that a ton. XLord now just sort of hanging out here. Is he going to build any pylons? Yes, he has one all the way over here. Got to make sure those pylons are nice and spread out on a map as kind of kooky as this. I mean, even throwing a pylon down here at this point, and then one pylon down here at your, your Zerg buddy's backside. You can just warp in some stalkers, shoot here, and then run away back home. Destructible Rocks finally going down. More chrono boosting going on. Looks like he's chrono boosting those Colossi as well, chrono boosting these. Extended thermal lance upgrades. The upgrade I think is the most important one in the game. No real growth by Protoss. Has almost the identical size army that he had before, but he's expanding again. That's a bold move. That is an interesting and bold play. Now, for instance, if Protoss had expanded here, I would be like, ugh, because you do need units. You heard me say at the start, this is a great place to expand if you're on the aggressive, if you can attack. You know, you're moving things towards your opponent's base. Let's say you're tank pushing his Terran. Take that gold. That's the good spot. But if you're this Protoss who's kind of hanging back, who's kind of feeling like, I've got to be more defensive. The Zerg player held off my initial push with no problem. Then, yeah, you can expand in this tucked back away place. It is a farther walk distance for your opponent. And yeah, now notice, guys. I want you to notice something. There's something that's important that I want to tell you. First thing I said at the start is when you're looking at a new map, think about expansions first. Think about what your first base is going to be, which, you know, is almost always going to be your natural. Interestingly, on Incineration Zone, wasn't your natural. It was like that back corner side for Zerg. But anyways, always think about what your first base is, and then what your third base is. That's the most important thing, like the base after you take your obvious first expansion, because it's gonna have a huge impact on the game. Steps of War, reasonable place to take a third base, is that one that's right next to your main. Why not take that as your third? But if you're in a pretty advantageous spot, as Zerg, for instance, or if you're a Protoss and you've kind of contained your Terran buddy, you can take the Gold Expo, and there are situations where that might be valuable. Or if you're a Zerg player who's playing a very Turtle-esque style, and you want to just have a lot of Nidus Worms and a lot of Mutalisks, you can take both golds and then bounce back and forth between them, and think to yourself, well, he can't really hit both places at once. If everything's all tightened together, then, lost my train of thought. Yeah, if all your expansions are tightened together, you're sort of committed to keeping everything locked down and backed away, and then you're very easy to contain. So on this map, Zerg player who is feeling a little bit under pressure after that start push reasonably takes this third hatchery. The Protoss player who's feeling under pressure after his failed push is taking this third expansion as a backup side. If for some reason Protoss was doing some sort of early expand, the Zerg could much more reasonably take this gold expansion. Or if I'm Terran and I'm tank pushing, I could much more reasonably take that gold expansion. Looks like Protoss is just having as much fun as he can. Ooh, rallying his Colossus to somewhere in the middle of the map. I really want to see if that guy is going to go suicide. That would be so funny. Oh no, here he comes. Alright, to hell with hardcore analysis. Look at this. Alright, what is the Colossus going to do? Yes, sir, absolutely. I will. Oh, XLord, having a focus. How dare you? You're ruining everyone's fun. Now, in terms of just basic general strategy, ignoring the map, we like that +2 weapon upgrade coming over here to the Colossus. Look at the upgrade. It does 17 damage. 17 times 2 is 34. So, if suddenly you are upgraded to 19, you'll be doing 38 damage. In other words, you can kill Zerglings in one shot. Yes, we like that one a lot. Zerg player expanding here. Oh, hey, love this choice as a third base. Or do I? Normally, I'd say I love this because, look, it's like an arrow. Look at the bases. I took my natural, and I took this third. By the way, look at the mini-map where my mouse is. And then, hey, I'm going to sweep up here to this fourth base. Now, notice, if I'm defending this fourth, and I'm defending this natural, he literally cannot hit this base. He literally cannot. Because I'm going to have all this ground covered with units to cover this base, and I'm going to have all these creep and spine crawler guys here to cover my nat. No entrances left, so I kind of like this base. This one is a little bit easier to defend from ground. I can push you back to here. I can push you back to here. So that seems pretty good. But either way, it looks like, OgreEli going to be moving up to attack while he expands. Attacking and expanding. Canonical, classic, typical way to expand. Oh, that's right, force fields don't do anything to Ultralisk. But, again, Colossus Stalker is just such a good composition.